bikes. We got to, see a bunch of elk while we were up there. And I mean, it was just gorgeous. So, and partly because of the day in the company, but it was just a great hike.
Yeah, we've done a couple of smaller hikes in Rocky Mountain,
Mm-hmm.
and all of them. I mean, it doesn't matter where you're at; they're all great. That place is beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one of the most recent ones we also did. If you haven't gone to Brainerd Lake area, there's a whole bunch of good hikes there. And if you want to see moose, that's the place to see them. They have tons of moose in that area.
Brainerd Lake.
Yeah, there's two major trails. One goes up to Mitchell Lake and Blue Lake, and then the other one goes up to the Isabel Lake and Isabel Glacier. Those are kind of their two bigger trails that go out to the west, so they can get to the Continental Divide. But once again, they do. I kind of picked that one because there's a bunch of different lakes and little stopping points. So if your sons get a little tired, then you can kind of like still feel like you got to a certain point before you turn back. So
yeah. So you've went through the winter. You've been through spring, summer. Do you have a favorite time of the year that you like to hike?
I kind of like the winter. Like those cold hikes when I first started I really liked them. They were super fun. The trails are a lot less packed at that time. Like when you're out there like super early in the morning, there's like no leaves on the trees, so it's kind of cool seeing the sun kind of come up over in the sun and the snow hitting. I kind of like the winter ones, but I mean they all have their own spots because when we hit springtime, then you get all the wildflowers and stuff like that. Summer is probably my least favorite. I mean, for me to go somewhere that's not as hot, I have to go way up in the mountains and drive a lot further. And then we get all the tourists and everybody that wasn't actually hiking before, they're now all out hiking. So it's a lot more crowded trailheads and stuff too. So yeah.
Well, and I think COVID has had a lot to do with the crowded trailheads. I know, I think a lot of people are taking up the hobby now that there's nothing else to do.
I think so too. And I got a little irony that like back in March when like everything completely locked down, it was right around St. Patrick's Day. I stopped hiking because the business that I have, we had to shut down. But what I do is I deal with lots of kids in school and things like that. So I was really afraid of me becoming an asymptomatic carrier and then going out to like all my normal deliveries at schools and then be like, okay, who have you interacted with? And I'm like, every school in the county. And like my contact tracing is a nightmare. So I really pulled back, and I found a lot of irony in the fact that like the hobby that I took up so I could get away from people was a hobby that I wasn't allowed to do right now because I needed to stay away from people. I was like, this is really ironic, so I started trying to find like less hiked things like at weird times of the week and weird times to kind of go do smaller hikes. So at least I could keep on doing it, but not, interact with as many people as possible at that point. Yeah.
Yeah, and I know, I mean, for me, since I'm a kind of a stay-at-home dad right now, I've been able to take my boys out in the weird times of the day and weird times of the week. But we've still kind of, we've ran into the gamut of people.
Mm-hmm.
So my two boys have zero sense of personal space, and they love to talk to everybody. Some people love it. They love talking to my kids, and I've ran into a couple people that are absolutely petrified when they see my two boys on a trail.
Yeah.
Have you noticed that your interactions with people have been any different? Or
I don't think different because of COVID. I mean, I think some people have masks on the trails and it's greatly appreciated. I have a gator that I picked up that I got actually earlier than COVID because I like when I got to the top of hills, it like kind of more keep the wind out of my face. That's really nice. I can just pull it up over my face and then drop it back down again. Some trails are pretty, narrow, so you kind of have to, go around there. I do find, and I can't blame anyone because, everybody's experience is different, but like, I'm very much like the kind of person that just says like, hey, good morning, have a good hike to every person I pass. Like, I don't try to make conversation, just kind of like acknowledge that they're there. It's weird for me because, me being like a middle-aged guy, if there's like a woman or a girl kind of hiking by themselves, I definitely kind of get that like a little standoffishness, and I can't blame them because they don't know me and they don't know who I am. But, it got, at first it was a little weird for me to get used to just like, saying hi to someone is kind of like a little off-putting to people. But I also realized that like, that's probably born of some experience they'd had with somebody being kind of creepy to them. So I can't really blame them either.
And you were talking about the Hiking Colorado page. You notice it a lot whenever people are asking for hiking partners. Things can get kind of creepy.
Yeah, exactly. And so like, but also I'm not going to let, I'm not going to automatically presume anybody's proclivities, and I'm still going to be the hey, how are you doing kind of guy that I am. Like saying, I don't try to stop and talk to people because I think they're out there for that reason too. But I think it's also, for me, as weird as it's kind of like a safety thing. If I said hi to somebody, I remember them. So if something were to happen later on, or they were missing or something, then it makes me remember like seeing those people on the trail. So if, I got down the trailhead and someone's like, hey, have you seen this person? If I would just walk by them and kind of avert my eyes, I wouldn't remember that person. Where if I saw them, it's like, yeah, I saw them on this trail at this point. Let me go help you try to find them, kind of thing.
Another,
You know,
like a safety thing, kind of.
yeah, exactly. For me, I've always kind of like I have a pretty good like photographic memory, and so like I like to like register people I see in my mind, and just as many people that might be a little standoffish as just as many people that are like, just like you can tell like this might be their first time hiking in Colorado, and they're just like in awe of where they get to walk around, and that kind of reaffirms my like, you know what, like these people are like, this is what they're going to go home and they're going to tell their friends about for forever, and I literally can walk out here any day of the week I want to, and it's like I just like get that appreciation with it too.
Yeah, whenever my family came out and visited this spring, we took them up to the national park, and they're big fans of the Smoky Mountains.
Mm-hmm.
In their mind, they always said those are great mountains, and I was like, well, we'll see what you think about that.
Yeah.
And I took them up in the Rockies, and they kind of just looked around, like, okay, these are mountains. This is what a mountain is supposed to be.
Smoky Mountains are a great hill. No.
Well, being from Southern Ohio, they call it the Little Smokies.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And that's exactly what it is. I mean, I was very uninspired with the Smokies. I'm not a big crowd guy anyway, so Pigeon Forge and Gatlinburg did nothing for me.
Yeah. We used to go hiking up in New York near like Watkins Glen, or down near Athens, Ohio. Down there, there was lots of good hiking in the cliffs and things like that down there. But yeah, but it's a totally different kind of quote unquote hiking than you do here in Colorado. Like hiking in Ohio is like walking through the woods and maybe finding like a cool like gorge or something to walk through. Like, but it's sure ain't a mountain, that's for sure.
It's so funny. The first time we ever came out here, we did the train ride up to the top of Pikes Peak.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And we were sitting there, my wife and I, and the lady behind us said, "Oh yeah, we've got something similar to this back home. It's called Hocking Hills." And me and my wife looked at each other and thought, "This is nothing like Hocking Hills. This is insane."
It'd be like saying like the funiculums that are like in Pittsburgh are the same thing, like
yeah. Yeah, we seen bears running up the side of the mountain. We were, it was like 30 degrees at the top. It was nuts.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So out of all these hikes you've done, you've been around quite a bit. Are you planning something a little bit bigger? Something you're really looking forward to?
Sort of yes, sort of no. I mean, I'm not like, I mean, someday, like when I'm retired, I'd love to do like the Colorado Trail from Denver down to Durango, like more like through hiking or overnight backpacking kind of thing. For right now, I mean, I'm just kind of taking my time and kind of like, I'm trying to knock off like all the big peaks in front of Boulder. So I've done Sanitas now, I've done South Boulder Peak. So I still have Bear Peak and Green Mountain. And Flagstaff are like the five, the five peaks over Boulder. And then there is, I mean, some people do what they call the Boulder Traverse, and they'll do all five of those peaks in one day. I don't know if I'll ever get to that, but so things like that. I'm just kind of like, I'm trying to kind of like check off all the easy ones that are close by, and that way I can like explore a little further. I do, in terms of like 14ers, I've done Bierstadt. I did that 2 or 3 years ago and absolutely killed myself because I did not do any work ahead of time for it. So I'd kind of like to go back and do that one again now that like I've been hiking and like could probably enjoy it a little more. And then I'd love to do Longs Peak. That one I'm not going to do unless I can find somebody that's done it before. I think I can handle the physicality of it, but it's a little more technical of a climb. I know a lot of people just do it casually all the time, but I'd prefer to I'll probably go on the Hiking Colorado page and find somebody who's just done it before that I can just do it with, not necessarily a guide, just like, hey, you've physically been up here before, you know where you're going kind of thing. Yeah.
No. Well, shoot, I don't know where I was going to go. Oh, so through all your experiences, what would you say to somebody that wants to hike, but they're either afraid or they don't think they could do it?
Literally, I mean, just go do it. I mean, it doesn't have to be anything big. It doesn't have to be long. It doesn't have to be whatever it is. Just do what makes you comfortable, and do it until you're not having fun anymore. Then stop that day. And then the next day, go out until you're not having fun anymore, and then stop. And you'll find that gets longer and longer. when I started doing this, like 3 and 4 mile hikes were like, I'm done for the day. Like that's fine. That's good. And now, I mean, I find myself like, if it's not at least 6 miles, I feel like I haven't done a hike. Like I want to find, like I'm finding 8 and 9 and 10 mile hikes, but like those hikes that I want to do now that like I feel like are like right the length I want to do are the ones that I looked at in the book when I picked up to do my first hike and was like, oh geez, I'm never going to be able to do that one. No way am I going to do that hike. Like those were like the ones I looked at, like what kind of crazy people do those hikes? No way, and now those are the ones that like, if I don't do something that long, I like, I still have fun on the hike, but I'm kind of like itching to do a little bit more. And I guess and kind of with the blog, when I first started doing the blog, I think the biggest thing that I thought to myself, and this goes for anyone, whether it's hiking or blog or podcast, your first one's going to be terrible. It's going to be bad. It's going to be bad, but you can't get to your 50th hike. You can't get to your 50th blog entry. You can't get to your 50th podcast without doing your first one. And all of those things that you really love out there, whether it be hikers you admire or podcasts you listen to every week or stories that you love listening to people tell, they all did that first story and it was terrible. They all did that first podcast and it was terrible. And they all went hiking for the first time and forgot their gloves and froze their fingers off. But they didn't get to number 50. They didn't get to number 100 without doing number 1 first. And that's kind of like, I really took that to heart and was like, you know what? If I want to get 50 hikes in, I have to do the first one first. You can't get to 50 without doing number 1 through 49. And now I'm at 21. I'm writing up number 21 right now, kind of thing. So, and yeah, I mean, so I haven't been around for too long, but I've got 20 different hikes in all over Colorado now that, I've taken and shared with people, and some people like reading it, and that's awesome for me.
You reminded me, the one thing I did enjoy reading about, the snowshoeing that your brother-in-law took you on.
Yeah, that was super fun. That was a birthday present, or a Christmas present for me. And my brother-in-law is a Marine, or was a Marine. He's retired now. But he was a Marine, and he is like super fit. He does like 100-mile bike rides, and he does like 65-mile backpacking trips. And like, he's a man's man, and so he said, hey, let's go snowshoeing. I was like, awesome. Sounds fun. I've been hiking. I think I can definitely handle this. And then he picks a hike that starts at 12,000 feet and he wants to go like snowshoeing for like 7 miles up in the mountains, like in the middle of nowhere. And I'm like, okay, let's go, cause I'm not going to, I can't back down to that, but, and, we didn't end up doing the full 7 miles because he had never been snowshoeing either, but he was in shape. And we had a really great time. We had to cut trail for a while because I think we went further than most people went. We walked across a frozen lake, which I'd never done before. The lake was completely frozen over. So we like took a shortcut right across the middle of the lake on snowshoes, which was kind of crazy, but also pretty cool. It was a good time. It was a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun together. He has kids and he works all the time, as do I. So like, we've never really gotten time to just hang out with each other. And I think this summer we're actually going to go back to the same place we went snowshoeing and hike it. So we can see like, were we actually on the trail? And now we're going to go like out to the end of the trail because it's only like a 4 or 5 mile hike out to the end of the trail where we're going to go. But when you're cutting trail in snowshoes, it feels like 15. So we're going to go back without snowshoes now that the snow is melted. I think we're going to redo that hike this summer. So it's going to be a cool follow-up post for me if we get to go do that hike too. So yeah.
The audacity of your brother-in-law to take you doing something for the first time that he had never done.
I mean, that's kind of my wife's family. That's kind of my wife's family's like thing though. Like I've constantly, since I like started dating my wife, like they're like big mountain bikers. Like, I mean, my other sister-in-law like has gone to like world championships on mountain biking. So like, I'll like show up and they'll be like, hey, let's go. We're going to go ride mountain bikes. And I'm like, well, I've never really done it. They're like, well, you'll be fine. And so I show up with like a Walmart bike that I borrowed from a friend of mine and they're like on professional road courses. And then I flip the bike and cut myself up. That was like my first time I met my in-laws, my future in-laws. I like shredded my legs and was bleeding all over the place and looked like a complete moron. So that's kind of the story with my in-laws, is that like they have, the out of shape guy go do all this. I mean, and I love doing it. It's fun. And I just definitely overextend myself trying to, I guess, impress them, but more just participate with them. And they do crazy stuff like that. So it wasn't really a huge surprise to me, the hike that he picked, but I felt better prepared because I had been actually hiking beforehand. And I don't feel like I let him down. I wasn't like wheezing, like, like I don't even know. I don't even have
a Flatlander.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. I didn't look like I was a guy from Ohio when I was up there. I held my own for a while,
Is snowshoeing something you're going to continue to do this winter, you think?
I think so. It's pretty fun. I'm hoping this summer I can maybe find a pair of used snowshoes super cheap. Kind of buy them in off season. Yeah, it was a lot of